You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour. And backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Wheel podcast. In this episode, we are getting a peek under the covers of the RV industry to see what is involved in designing a new RV. Spoiler alert, it's not a simple process. There's a lot to consider when coming up with a design. I cannot do it justice, so we will let Aimee, a product planner from Winnebago, talk to us about the process.
Hey, Aimee, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role over at Winnebago?
For sure. So originally from upstate New York, and I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, so psychoanalyze accordingly. And so growing up there, I ended up going to Iowa State. And at Iowa State, I originally studied graphic design, but with the help of a really great TA, she actually directed me towards industrial design, which I am so thankful for her because it is definitely what I wanted to do, and I didn't even know it was a thing. So I went into industrial design. I was practicing my interviewing skills, and I decided to practice them with Winnebago, and I landed the job. And Susan Gardner here, she did a fantastic job because she said, hey, you applied for position A, but I think that position B would actually fit your personality way better. And so that's how I got into the product planning aspect. I've been here 3.5 years already. That's pretty surprising. Some days it feels like 3, some days it feels like a day, and sometimes it feels like 30 years.
Okay.
But yeah.
Depending on the week, maybe.
Yes, for sure.
So you mentioned industrial design and your role as a product planner. Can you kind of explain what a product planner does and how does industrial design fit into that?
For sure. Yeah. So product planner is probably one of the most vague titles. We plan products. But the meat and potatoes of the whole thing is that we work on the floor plans and the features. So it's a little bit of like talking to people. It's a little bit of sitting at your desk. It's a little bit of hands-on. It's a little bit of like physical work, like on the computer. And so we go and talk to customers and we find out what the need states are. So whether that's a completely new demographic, like when the Revel came out, it was the first adventure van that like happened in the mass market. And so there's a hole in the market. There's different sizes of holes. So sometimes it'll be something that's just like a smaller niche. And so we'll go out, we'll talk to customers. Then we come back and we say, okay, here are the need states. And we'll say like for the Solis, for example, the need state is for a family. So you're going to need things like additional sleeping spaces, additional seat belts, food storage, things like that. When we find that, we come back and then we just kind of do just ideation after ideation of floor plans and then features also. So you'll notice like, again, Revel versus Solis, Solis has propane on board and the Revel doesn't. So if you look at those two consumers, the Solis consumer being a little bit more tied to the grid, it's easier for them to access that versus the Revel consumer who's going to be more off-grid and doesn't want to have to access propane. So looking at the need state and then forming the floor plans and the features based off of that. And industrial design was really this like beautiful mixture between art and science or art and like engineering. It wasn't just engineering for the sake of engineering. It had to fit people. And it wasn't just making something for people. It was well thought through. So that industrial design linked so well with looking at building these vans, not just for the sake of building vans, and not just for the sake of giving people a van to explore in, but really blending those two together. And I think that it was really worked it hand in hand between the industrial design and the product planning.
I know you play a heavy hand with the Solis Pocket 36B, but you actually are overseeing the entire Solis and Pocket layout, which has 4 floor plans. In your own words, could you best describe like what is the market for the Solis? And yeah, I think that's it. Just what is the idea behind the Solis Pocket? How would you describe that RV, and what's the market for that RV?
Yeah. So all of our products, we have like what we call our Montoya statement, which is just to the point of what it is. And for the Solis, we say it's an entry level family van. And then the Solis Pocket expanded to it's an entry level solo van. And there's 2 leading principles that we really carry with the Solis: surf to slopes and keep it simple Solis. And with those, so the P came out first, which is on the 159-inch wheelbase non-extended. So you're at 19 foot 9 inches. I think it's actually technically 19 foot 8.10, but so it's our mid-length chassis. And that was one of the first ones that kind of came out that you're looking at doing the pop top. So you get a lot of that reminiscent like Westphalia vibes. And you have the 2 3-point seat belts. So it really opens up like, hey, this van life isn't just for like the crunchy granola kind of people, and it's not for just your revitalized hippie. It's now for your families, and everybody like has that feeling of, yeah, I used to camp with my parents in a Westphalia, and those kinds of feelings, or whether it's a Euro van. And so we looked at how to bring the family in. Then the P was doing really well, and the PX came along with it. And from what I'm told by Chris, who's the product manager for the Solis, so my boss, is that there's a longer chassis, which is 21 feet. Same wheelbase, you just get 18 inches extended on the back end. And everybody came to him, they're like, oh, what are we going to do with this floor plan? We have 18 extra inches. We have the world. We can make a whole new floor plan. And he's like, nothing. Everybody looked at him and like, what? And he's like, we're not going to do anything. We're going to keep the exact same floor plan and just give people garage space. So now, because you're traveling with the family, I mean, kids have a lot of stuff. Mom, dad, whoever has a lot of stuff. I mean, grandma and grandpa come along. So now you have that extra gear space. Now you can bring all the stuff, the bikes, the sand pails for the beach or whatever that might be, and you have a space to put them. And that was really a different way to take on the vans, but still geared towards that family. And the Solis had done really well. And again, this is before my time at this point. The Pocket comes out. ProMaster has a 136-inch wheelbase chassis, which goes down to 18 feet. So think like the size of a Suburban. And that offers some new interesting aspects, because now you can drive to the grocery store. Now you can drive in the city. You can parallel park this unit. So it opens that up to so many more people. And families, as we all know, are not just nuclear. They're not just 4 people, mom, dad, 2 kids. Families come in all shapes and sizes. Like I have a couple of dogs and I usually travel with them. So it's like family could just be a solo traveler with their pets. So we looked at how can we do this like entry-level van, really get people into the van life movement. And the 136 proved an excellent place to house that. And one of our owners, he put it perfectly. I met him the first year I went to Tampa, and he said that that Winnebago cracked the nut of the DIY van. He's like, I don't need to know electrical. I don't need to know plumbing. I don't need to know heating. You gave me the shell, and now I can do whatever I want with it. He's like, I have a bed. I have plumbing. I have everything like that. But you gave me the base. And people were loving the 36A. But if you know the 36A, there's no restroom. So some of those solo travelers, I talked to this wonderful woman named Mary, and she was looking for something where she didn't have to go into the gas station to go to the bathroom or take a shower, because she felt a little anxious that showed that she was a solo traveler and put her a little bit, left her a little unguarded, if that makes sense. And so she's like, I would really love if I had everything I needed in this contained unit, so I don't have to expose the fact that I'm a solo female traveler. And so we're like, how can we do a bathroom in this short 18-foot floor plan. And so we're looking at all the different bathrooms, and really you can have 3 options: front bath, mid bath, rear bath. And the only one that, or I guess the one that impedes the least on the floor plan is that rear bathroom, because it still leaves that front area to be your warm, homey area. So really took where that family started and blended that off of it, and where that expanded to now that family can be defined by whoever's staying in these.
Sean and I have always said this, that Winnebago does a great job of listening to the customer, and they implement those changes as you guys listen. You're not just listening and you're like, yeah, whatever, we're going to do what we want to do. A lot of times your product designs are based right from the consumer, which is always fantastic. The other thing I like about the pocket, we'll stick with the pocket for a moment, is because of the size of it, I feel like people can really get a lot of use out of it. They can use it for camping, but they can also use it as their daily driver. They can use it for the soccer games and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really smart design, that you're opening up more versatility with the vehicle, and that somebody's going to get more than just camping trips out of it. So I thought that was, yeah, I'm a fan of the pocket.
Yeah, we see a lot of people using it as a daily driver, because now say you do go to Costco or whatever, you have your fridge right there with you. Your ice cream will never get warm.
And that's like
Mhm.
high up on the importance list for me anyway, is ice cream. I know that sounds sarcastic when I said that, but I'm being 100% sincere. Ice cream is very important to me.
Out of all the features on the various Solis floor plans, do you have any favorites?
Ooh. I would say there's probably 2 aspects, and this goes with a couple of the different Solis floor plans. One is the pop top, which is kind of synonymous with the Solis at this point. It really expands your living space, brings in fresh air, and the first time I slept up there, it it elevated tent camping, it elevated van camping. It was so nice to just sit up there. You could feel the breeze. It was just very nice and peaceful, and it wasn't as like roughing it as just with a ground tent. But then the other one is kind of the multifunctional and logical types of floor plan aspects. So like the couch in the P, you can get a couch option. And so being able to expand that into a bed, not only can you now, in a 19-foot van, seat 6 people with proper 3-point seat belts, but now you can sleep 4. With the Luno bed, you can sleep 5. And so you make this little van very multifunctional. And in the pockets, that dinette is kind of the heart and soul of where those pockets are. And those convert into everything. So even though one customer maybe they'll never use it in couch mode, or maybe they'll never put it back in dinette mode. But by having all of those different aspects, it lets an OEM who makes hundreds of vans be able to attend to multiple people's specific needs without having to make these niche, like one-off floor plans. And so I think that between all of them, it'd be multifunctional space and the pop tops.
And the pop top has become incredibly popular. I do a lot of work with Winnebago. I'm out at the Overland shows, and I think every time somebody looks at one of the vehicles with the pop top, they automatically fall in love with it. And then every time they see one of a Winnebago out there that doesn't have a pop top, they often ask, "Can I get this in a pop top?" So you guys are doing pop tops in a lot of the different floor plans now, even on Class C's like the Echo. And the great thing about the pop top is that you access it from the inside. The question I have about the pop top is: the pop top something that Winnebago builds in house, or is that a third party structure? I know Winnebago tries to do as much as possible in house. Is the pop top, which is the pop top?
So the pop top has been both in its lifespan. So originally we bought it third party, and we've looked at a few different ones because they all have different structure and different dimensions. And so we did use for quite a while a third party one. We recently have worked on the development for our own in-house pop top, because if you remember the old Euro vans, we used to do the pop tops on those, and we designed those. So going from that, we're like, okay, we should be able to do a pop top that's really, really good and fits the needs that we're seeing in our consumers. So some of those needs that you'll see the difference between that third party and going to ours is like the back lifts up higher. So usually you have, um, trying to explain this in words versus just my little hand gestures here. But you have when your pop top is closed, it's like parallel lines. And then usually the front will tip up and the back ends up being a very acute wedge. So what we looked at was when people are parking, you're trying to get as level as you can. But in a van, it's not as big of a deal because you can kind of adjust where you're sleeping a little bit.
Hmm.
So people were wanting to sleep with their head in the other direction, not just for the leveling, because you always want your head uphill, but also pillows would always drop out of the hole. And so what we did was instead of just coming up at an angle, we kind of came up and tilted towards the sky to allow that back section to come up higher. So now you can sleep with your head in that direction. We also found that the ladders, the rungs were always very just uncomfortable, not very ergonomic on your feet, especially when you're sleeping, you're barefooted or have socks on, you don't have hard shoes. So we looked at how can we widen those and make them more of a stair step with a nice wide tread, comfortable on bare feet, but not slippery on socked feet. And we took all of these needs that we were seeing from the pop top user and we decided to take what we had learned from that third party pop top and develop our own pop top to really fit those needs. And we do try to do quite a bit in house. We have a lot of our verticals right here in Forest City. And that's one thing that we felt like we could really leverage and end up coming up with this pop top that works and kind of maybe adheres to some of those needs that otherwise were maybe not fully fulfilled.
Okay. It's funny as you describe this, just how much goes into just the pop top and the ladder and what you have to be conscious of. Just it's got to be more than just looks good. It's got to be able to function, but it's got to be comfortable on your feet. And then I would imagine safety plays into a part of it. It must be very difficult, I would think, to kind of juggle all these things to a final product that is safe, that looks great. Is that a big challenge? Is that part of like a big challenge for you when you're sitting at your desk and maybe drawing something up?
I would say yes and no. It's a very daunting at the beginning, but one of the nice things is that we were talking about those verticals, and it's really cool because everybody's an expert at something, and it's okay to not be an expert at everything. Because if I want to know, hey, I want this really specific hinge, I can go over to our metal stamping department, talk to somebody who is an expert in metal fabrication, and be able to find out if that's possible or if I'm worked really closely, the gentleman in our engineering team who actually developed the pop top, it was, hey, we're looking at doing this material for the outside of the tent. Does that work? And it's like, okay, well, our customers are saying that they want to camp at these temperatures. So it's really nice that you don't have to be a subject matter expert. And when it does get a little daunting, you can go walk over to the next building or across to the other cubicle and be able to talk to somebody who is the subject matter expert. And that really helps because we can leverage all of each other's strengths and end up coming up with a product that I would never be able to even imagine, like some of the solutions that we end up coming up with. So, yes and no.
Using that kind of same thought process, something like the multifunction dinette that you mentioned, how long does it take to design something like that and to develop it?
Oof. Um, yeah, so it's a little tricky because what we do is, and especially for that multifunctional dinette, what we did was we grabbed some engineers. I grabbed one of my coworkers who has significant tenure and everything that he touches product wise turns to gold. And talked to some of our there's some industrial designers we have in our creative design department and grabbed a couple of people and just said, this is the goal. And the goal was have something where you can face each other to have good conversation. Because when you're facing on a couch and you're talking sideways, you don't have as rich communication. And so we wanted something where you could communicate facing each other. We wanted something to be able to have 2 3-point seatbelts for when somebody brings the grandkids along or the friends, and have something that becomes a bed. So we lay out a whiteboard or verbally, whatever it might be for the project. And we say, here's what we're trying to do. And then all of us ideate for the multifunctional dinette and the B. We actually got together twice a week, got everybody all together and just started talking about, oh, well, in the Rialta, we did this. And in the Brave, we did this. Could we leverage the mechanism from this table couch thing? And we started talking like that. If I had to put a time on that specifically, it probably took 8 months to a year because the development is more than just that ideation. Once we got an idea, we went over to the model shop, and we have some fantastic guys in our concepts area who actually take the plywood, or we'll even start with cardboard and start looking at, like, okay, would this system work? Would this be load bearing? Then we analyze it and we put it into a 3D modeling software, and we do some just general simulated tests in there. I don't understand the entire process, but they do some simulated tests there, and we continue to say, okay, this might not be able to take like tensile strength loads or shear loads, and we have to go back and reevaluate how we might be able to better do that. And so that takes a while. But once we get a correct solution, we then go to our test lab, another fantastic resource we have right on campus. And we'll actually have this in a completely work with the suppliers, have the actual production ready type, whatever it might be, the unit. For us, it happened to be that sliding 3-point seatbelt in this unit. But we'll put that in a real van, and we then do seatbelt pulls, which includes not just on the seatbelts and crash test type loads on that, but it's also the frame. So to be able to go from these twice a week conversations and sketches and drawings to a physical mock-up to an engineering model and then to the real life and tested, it takes quite a bit of time. And that one was definitely more involved because when you get 3-point seatbelts, people are going to put their children in those. And so you get the legal department in and you get engineering, and it becomes quite involved. But at the end, we have something that we stand behind 100%.
The 3-point seatbelt is a big deal also. So I, working the shows with you guys, a lot of people want to know about those 3-point seatbelts. But you just mentioned something. You said a sliding 3-point seatbelt. What did you mean by a sliding 3-point seatbelt?
Yeah, so in the 36B, for those of you who don't know the layout, is if you're standing in the cab looking towards the back, on the right-hand side of the van, like the driver's side, you have a dinette seat, two box seats that face each other with a table in between. On the left-hand side, you have a galley, and in the middle, you have an aisle to get back to the restroom. And so the van is only so wide. We're only about 72 at that height, 72 inches. And so with that dinette, and one thing we had in the 36A is we had one 3-point seatbelt in the rearmost forward-facing dinette seat. And that was fantastic. People loved that they could bring another person along and they didn't have to sit in a lap belt, or they could bring a grandchild along who had to have a car seat. And we looked at, if we're already going to be trying to make a double-sized bed, so it has to expand somehow, is there a way to incorporate that expansion to be able to get a secondary seat? So can you fill the space between that rear dinette seat and the galley with another seat so that you can now carry both grandchildren, or say that you're a couple in this van and you're bringing another couple friends? Now you have these 2 seats. And what we looked at was based off of mechanisms like in the 259K, which is our Travato K floor plan. We have a slat system. So like if you interlock your fingers and you pull them apart, those slats slide. And so we looked at that mechanism being able to work to create the double bed mode. And it ended up working in our favor that we could extend that dinette seat out into the hallway, lock it into the galley for that extra rigidity for the pull test, and then have 2 proper 3-point seatbelts that you can actually put car seats on and travel in those positions. So that's kind of where that came from. And it did end up successfully working. And one of our head engineers who helped design this has 2 young ones. And he had them both in those seat belts and in their car seats, and took it for a weekend to test, is this comfortable? Can I latch the car seats in this position? The immersive testing also then takes time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you didn't necessarily need to make that second seat a 3-point though. That was just something that you guys wanted. Like if you wanted to, you could have probably just done a lap if you wanted to, but you guys decided to take the extra steps and try to work out a way to make it a 3-point. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And the need came from during what was GNR and is now Camp Winnebago. We started by doing, and we always do VOC at these events, as you know, Kenny. And what we did was, hey, we have VOC for solo travelers or solo with the occasional guest. And we brought 7 people from Winnebago, the campgrounds out there. And so we had some Travato owners, some Solis owners. There was a delightful gentleman who had a Rialta, and we brought everybody in and we showed them this cardboard mock-up that's literally like has a marker written on the side that says bench seat ? And we brought them in and we walked them through like our idea. And some of the feedback from that is, yes, I travel solo, but when I have people with me, they want to feel like they're riding a car. Again, to your point, like at this size, this can be a daily driver. And so they felt like a lap belt was a little casual if they were using this as a daily driver or had precious cargo like children or grandchildren. So we kind of proposed that to the engineers and said, is this even possible? Like, go big or go home. Could we do this 3-point seatbelt? And I can definitely say they maybe weren't enthused, but they took the challenge. And it ended up being that the structure that we have in that wall, we could do the left-hand side, so the closer to the van wall, and the inboard side could both be the mounts for those 3 points. And it ended up working out really well, but it was not initially a requirement.
Okay. Okay. And I know it's been a wow factor for a lot of people when I show them at the show that it is capable of doing that. So yeah, kudos to you guys for being able to pull that off.
Well, thank you.
So speaking of testing, do you as a planner get to take out any versions of the products after they're all assembled and put together to test and see how your ideas worked?
We do. We are very strongly encouraged to, and I can definitely say they don't have to twist our arm hard to get us to do that. But we do. We test all of our units. I mean, usually the planner or the manager is one of the first ones to go out. And I've taken, that trip was probably 2 weeks. So I had been in a pocket for 2 weeks in the 36A to understand the pros and the cons and how that fits different need states before developing the B, and then took the B out. I don't know if I could even keep track of the time at this point, but I took the B out quite a bit, and I traveled by myself. I traveled with my parents to see how does it work with like your different platonic relationships. And so we test thoroughly. And then after it goes through us and we come back with, oh, I stubbed my toe here, or I kept hitting the switch on my hip. All of those kinds of things. We come back, things are revised, and we go from our rough mock-ups to our like kind of builds in the model shop. Then we do like our prototypes, and then we go to line builds. So usually those prototypes, which are like production level, are what we take out so that before we go to our line prototypes, we have time to make those changes. And after I take it out and I get all of my OCD out and complaints or better ideas or whatever, we usually will then go to, like I was talking about, the engineer who really spearheaded this. And we ask other people within Winnebago to take them out and test in their scenarios. Because I don't have kids, and my dog is not going to want to be 3-point seat belted into the car. So we have everybody kind of test them out that we can to get all those different perspectives. And then we try to go to somebody within Winnebago. So we take this step. We do people who are close to the project in Winnebago. Then we do people who are separated from the project in Winnebago. So it could be like Emily from marketing has taken quite a few vans out, and she might know about the product, but she wasn't like necessarily there for the engineering of it. So she's close as far as Winnebago, but maybe not as involved in the project where she's going to have all the biases that we might. And then we go to somebody like an ambassador. And so we had this couple, two really lovely ladies, take them out, and they had it for 2 weeks. And so that next removal from Winnebago, they're still Winnebago customers, they're still like ambassadors, but they are removed even farther. They don't know anything about the project. And then the last step before we go like and actually release it into the world or work on our line protos is we have somebody who's not connected to Winnebago and is not connected to the project to take it out. And so it's really nice to see as you get that further separation, it keeps getting honed in, kind of like that double diamond theory of design, where you start diverging on ideas and converging into a product. So this really helps us converge into something that's going to be market ready.
So it sounds like a lot of users get to have some input into the final layout.
Yeah, for sure.
Has there ever been a feature, Aimee, that you had to fight to get put into an RV? Do you ever get pushback from Winnebago? Like you come up with this idea and you think it's amazing, you bring it to your boss, and they're like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea," and then maybe they bring it to a boss, and they're like, "Yeah, but that seems a little difficult to put in. We better not do that." Do you get pushback on any of your ideas?
I would definitely say that there's pushback, but a lot of what we're looking at, it comes from either a specific customer or a specific market gap. So we do a lot of that background research so that when we come and we say, and this one is the one that primarily comes to mind is the Revel. The Revel being the first OEM adventure van. Again, my boss, Chris, he went to his boss and he said, hey, this overlanding market, people are doing DIY vans. They're sleeping on in tents on top of their vehicles. I think we need to get into this market. And so he had that background of here's what people are doing today. This is why I think there's a hole. And then everybody was like, oh, are you sure? Like people want to go to campgrounds. They want to plug in. They want to have these luxuries. They don't want to go out and tent in a van. And so there's definitely some apprehension sometimes around either entire programs or even just features. Like in the 36B, we have a portable cassette toilet in the back. And that got a lot of pushback because it's like, you're going to tell somebody now, not only is there no black tank, but you have to physically remove your toilet to get that out. But when we look at that and we look at that apprehension, we say, okay, but what's the need? Let's go back to the fundamental need and see if that's filling it. And so the need being we want more gear space in the restroom. People are maybe going to a location that they don't need a toilet. People are reselling and they want to put a new toilet in. Or people really want composting toilets in this market, in this solo van market. And from our perspective, it's kind of hard to pitch a composting toilet to their traditional RV market. But by doing something that's removable, now we allow the customer to be able to completely remove it, replace it, replace it when it's time for them to resell if they want to. And so we looked at that need and that reinforced that, okay, this seems like a good path. Let's continue and see where it goes. And we might have a plan B in the back of our head if that does end up not working. But those things that have pushback, even if there is some pushback, we always circle back to that raw data and see if we're still grounded in what we need. And that usually resolves some of the conflict around either programs or features like that.
I have maybe a follow-up question to that. Have you worked on a project? And I would imagine, the RV market is somewhat affected by trends and things like that. So have you ever, like, how do you guys stay in front of the curve or in front of the trend? Or have you ever worked on something and you thought it was really trendy at the time? And, you just described that it takes maybe sometimes 8 months to a year to get to something actually to the market. Do you ever find yourself like you're halfway through the project and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that's not even really that trendy of an idea anymore. Maybe it'll fall flat. Is there ever a worry, like, as you're coming up with something that, oh, this is going to be limited in a lifespan, we have to abandon this idea because nobody's even interested in something like this anymore?
I would say for every one van that comes to the market, there were probably 10 other vans that we thought about and played around with. Whether that be something like this happened to be one that worked out, but during COVID, the solo van traveler, and that's where the Pocket came from. But we could have missed that entire, I mean, say that people didn't end up going into vans or we were all called back to work earlier, that could have fell very easily. And so there definitely are ideas where it's like we're working on it, and then that trend goes away. Or we're working on it and then it's like, well, this actually, like, there's been times where we've designed something like, oh yeah, well, we actually did that in the Rialta. And it's like, that's still maybe a good idea, but we might have done it already. And so let's see how we can morph it. So we're constantly ideating. We have this saying where it's always be user testing. And so even though I'm not working on the weekends, my YouTube feed filled with van life stuff, my Pinterest trying to show me everything van life. So I would definitely say that there are a lot of ideas that we go through that don't end up hitting the market. Or, and this happens quite frequently also, we come up with those ideas and then we're like, okay, well, that doesn't really fit into anything right now, push it aside. And then a year later, oh, this idea from a year ago would fit perfectly with this product. So there definitely is, but I don't know if I can share specifically.
No, you're fine. So no good ideas go to waste. Sometimes they come back.
Right.
So what about like I guess the question is, what comes first? Kind of like the chicken or the egg thing. Do you guys have a plan for a van before you get the chassis, or like with the Dodge ProMaster, you said they have this 18-foot length, and do you guys get that and just go sit inside and say, what could we do with this?
It's like the chicken and the egg, it's a little bit of both. There's definitely units that started with, we're looking for somebody who's going to be off grid. Okay, well, then we need a 4x4 chassis. We have to go to Mercedes because that's the only 4x4. But there's also been ones where it's like, hey, this 136 came out. This could be really amazing because of how maneuverable it is. What could we do in here? So I would say it depends on the hole in the market. And if the hole comes from a new chassis or if it comes from a new customer, it's the entire design is based on the context. And sometimes the context is shifting and other times it's pretty stagnant.
Aimee, so this is probably off topic a little bit, but your position that you have now, you worked very hard, you went to school, you got into Winnebago. It sounds like almost kind of lucky in the sense that you said that it was almost like a mock-up interview. But for somebody that wants to do what you do and wants to work in the RV industry, do you have any tips or any suggestions that they should be doing? Like, what should they be going to school for? How do they even, like, how did you even get in touch with Winnebago for your your interview?
So I'm trying to so all the questions that you just kind of had in there. How I got in touch with Winnebago was actually through a career fair at Iowa State. So they do a fantastic job. We have engineering career fairs, design career fairs, and basically every college has their own. And so I was just going to career fairs and really looking around for things that looked interesting. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm not just a sit down kind of person. I have all of these zoomies. And so I'm like, oh, what looks fun? What looks like something I could do for the rest of my life? And so that was where like some of the more like business kind of jobs, I'm like, I don't really, that doesn't really fit with my vibe. But Winnebago looked really fun because it was like, oh, we're making things that like they're toys, but they're based off of people. And so that's kind of how I found it. What I would recommend for people, I would say one of the things is that school is definitely, it was the path that I took, but I wouldn't say that that's the path everybody needs to take. If you looked at our whole, just our product team, everybody had a different path forward. one of my coworkers, she never went to college. Another one of my coworkers went to college for philosophy. So really everybody in our department is so different and beyond just what they did like in their history, whether that be school or otherwise. Also, like if they're a parent, if they're a solo, if they're just a couple. And so it allows us to really make sure that we're multifaceted, because owners are going to be multifaceted. If I had to suggest anything, I don't know if it would necessarily be a firm path like go to school for industrial design, which was fantastic and it definitely set me up for this role. And we had other industrial designers that have been on our team. But if I had to just give a suggestion, I would say it's just talk to people, and communication is going to be one of the biggest things. Communicating with other people about what their needs are and truly like hearing what they're saying, not just listening. And then also touching base with yourself and like how you're assessing what people are saying, how you're experiencing that, and how you can take that and turn it into what's the general need. So I think a big part of what we do is probably more communication than anything else. And I don't think that you need a formal education for that. It just comes down to being there and kind of that give and take between people. So I think that that's probably one of my biggest suggestions, because I've seen all of my coworkers excel so fantastically in what they do, and we all have a completely different background.
I ask for your advice, Aimee, because I think you are a tremendous force for good in the RV industry, and especially for Winnebago. And it's not even an opinion because you were just nominated. Could you kind of talk a little bit about what you were nominated for?
So yeah, I was recently nominated by the RV Women's Alliance for the Leader of Tomorrow Award with some other really fantastic women in the field. And that was honestly a very big, huge surprise. I actually thought that it was a spam email because it started out with "Congratulations! Click here to register," and I'm like, "Oh boy!" And they tell me if it's too good to be true, and you gotta click on a link and act fast, and I'm like, "This must be spam." So it was not spam. Surprise. And went there, and it was one of those things where it was a huge honor. I helped with some of the ERV and did a lot with that. And then the 36B, which happened really fast in just my first 3 years of working in the industry. And I have a fantastic team that backed me on that. And like I said, that are experts in their fields that have really helped that get off the ground. So I would say that award probably extends to the whole team that I work with. I did not win. However, one of the other ladies in our family, and so Winnebago, it owns Winnebago, Grand Design, Newmar, Barletta, Lithionics, and Chris Craft. And so out of all of that, actually one of the other nominees was in that family, and she's from Grand Design, and she's the one who won the award. And she has done a fantastic job within her company with her inclusion and representation in the RV business. So it was amazing to be nominated and amazing to be up there with other people within Winnebago Industries.
Yeah, and I think too, like you said, you're 3.5 years. You're young and you're already being nominated for stuff like this. And I'm going to go back a little bit to like trying to figure out the trends. I believe that you will probably be a person that is ahead of that trend, and other people will try to be keeping up with what you're doing, Aimee. I'm a big fan of you. Sabrina is a big fan of you as well. So very excited to see what you have in the works in the future and what you're going to be sharing.
Well, thank you. I'm flattered.
Well, I think that's all of our questions, Aimee. Is there anything that we might have missed that you want to highlight?
I don't think so. I think you guys pretty much covered it. It's a fun job, and the team that I work with is probably one of the most fun parts. And that team extends to like our owners and like colleagues, everybody like that. It's really awesome. Thank you guys for having me on.
I hope we can have Aimee on again in the future, as I believe she was a great guest. I love the behind-the-scenes look she was able to give us on how an RV comes together from idea to product to testing to market. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, and as you heard, Aimee is a very hands-on person and loves hearing from the public. So, if you have any further questions for Aimee, let us know in the comments section, and we will be able to get them to her and respond back to you for her. Also, if you enjoyed this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and let us know what type of interviews you would like to hear in the future. Take care all, and safe travels. Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed wholesale warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/beyond the wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.